The first thing Kaden Murlow noticed when he stepped into the sterile, humming clinic was how unnervingly clean it all looked. The walls were a too bright shade of white, the air smelled like a mix of ozone and something oddly sweet, and the only other occupant in the room was a tall, thin alien with pale lavender skin and 4 large eyes that blinked out of sync. The sign outside had read, "Veterinary Cooperative All Species Welcome," and Kaden figured that meant they were willing to treat his golden retriever, Daisy. Still, as he watched the alien fidget with a clipboard using 2 long, spindly fingers, he was getting second thoughts. "Hello," Kaden said, adjusting Daisy's leash. "I have an appointment for her. Daisy Murlow." The alien looked up, all 4 eyes focusing on him, and then darted back to the clipboard. Its voice was high and jittery. "Why, yes. Daisy. Canine species. Appointment logged. I am Dr. Zerl. I will assist." Kaden nodded and gave Daisy a reassuring pat. She wagged her tail furiously, tongue lolling out, utterly thrilled to be anywhere new. Dr. Zerl gestured toward a doorway. "Please proceed to examination room 2. As they walked, Daisy tried to sniff everything. Her nails clicked clacking on the smooth floor. Kaden kept a firm grip, but she was strong enough to nearly pull him along. When they entered the room, Dr. Zerl moved to a console, tapping at it furiously. Holographic diagrams of various Earth animals flickered into the air. "Canine," Zerl muttered. "Large size. Unknown temperament. She's friendly," Kaden said, smiling as Daisy sat down and thwacked her tail against the floor like a drum. "Wouldn't hurt a fly." Zerl turned, eyeing the dog with visible suspicion. "Must verify. Protocol." Before Kaden could respond, Zerl pressed a button and a mechanical arm extended from the wall with a scanning device attached. It hovered toward Daisy's head. Daisy, thinking it was a new toy, lunged forward and tried to lick the scanner. Zerl yelped an actual high-pitched yelp and stumbled back, knocking over a tray of metallic instruments with a clatter. Daisy froze, confused, then tried to help by picking up a small tool in her mouth and offering it to the doctor. "No. No. Dangerous." Zerl shrieked, scrambling backward until he hit the wall. Kaden wrapped his arms around Daisy and pulled her back. "Relax. She's too friendly to bite." The alien stared at him, trembling, its 4 eyes darting between Kaden and Daisy like it expected them to explode. She lunged," Zerl stammered. "She thought your scanner was a toy," Kaden said. He crouched, scratching Daisy behind the ears. "It's okay, girl. You're not in trouble." Zerl seemed to be recalibrating his understanding of reality. Slowly, he edged toward a different console, this time summoning what looked like a padded suit from a hidden compartment. Kaden stood up, eyebrows raised. "You're not seriously gonna suit up just to check her heartbeat, are you?" "Protective measures are essential," Zerl said, voice quivering. He pulled the suit over his gangly frame, the material inflating slightly as it sealed around him. The helmet made his head look 3 times bigger. Daisy barked once, delighted, and Zerl flinched so hard he nearly toppled over. Kaden sighed. "Look, if it makes you feel better, I'll hold her still." Zerl hesitated, then nodded stiffly. Kaden crouched again beside Daisy, wrapping an arm around her chest and holding her close. "Stay, girl. Good girl." Zerl approached slowly, holding a stethoscope-like device at arm's length. He pressed it to Daisy's side, and she thumped her tail happily against Kaden's leg. Zerl's hands shook the whole time. "Heart rate. Normal," Zerl said after a moment, voice muffled inside the suit. "No signs of aggression. No signs of disease." "See," Kaden said, standing up slowly. "Told you. She's a sweetheart." Just as Zerl started to relax, Daisy sneezed a wet, explosive sneeze directly onto the front of Zerl's suit. The alien screamed, dropped the scanner, and bolted from the room, leaving Kaden standing there open-mouthed while Daisy tilted her head, puzzled. Kaden wiped his face with his sleeve. "Okay," he muttered. "Maybe we went a little too fast." After a few minutes, another alien, shorter and wearing a dark blue uniform, entered cautiously. "I am Supervisor Relna," she said. "There was an incident?" Kaden rubbed the back of his neck. "Yeah." Daisy sneezed. Dr. Zerl panicked. Relna peered at Daisy, who was now lying on her back, tongue hanging out, waiting for belly rubs. Relna's 2 green eyes softened slightly. "The doctor is not accustomed to Terran species. I will complete the examination if you consent." "Please," Kaden said, exhausted already. Relna approached Daisy calmly, letting the dog sniff her gloved hand first. Daisy approved and rolled over further, tail thumping. Relna smiled, or at least Kaden thought it was a smile, and began the examination. Everything went smoothly until Relna tried to check Daisy's mouth. Daisy, thinking it was a game, tried to nibble at the gloves gently. Relna froze but didn't bolt. Kaden quickly intervened. "No teeth games, Daisy," he said firmly, pulling her back. "Sit." Relna exhaled and stepped back. "You have trained her well. However, her playful behavior is intense." "That's just how retrievers are," Kaden said. "They're big goofballs." Relna finished the exam, noting Daisy's excellent health, and handed Kaden a small vial of supplements. "These will enhance joint resilience," she explained. "Large canines are prone to hip issues." "Thanks," Kaden said, clipping the leash back onto Daisy's collar. "And, sorry for the panic." Relna gave a slow nod. "It is we who must adapt to Terran empathy and exuberance, not the reverse." Kaden smiled. "Fair point." As they were leaving, Dr. Zerl peeked out from a doorway, still wearing the padded suit. Daisy saw him, barked happily, and wagged her tail so hard her whole body wiggled. Zerl shrieked again and disappeared back into the hallway. Kaden sighed and looked down at Daisy. "You're gonna get us banned from every clinic on the planet, girl." Daisy just wagged harder. Outside, the sun was warm and the sky was a brilliant shade of teal, a welcome contrast to the artificial lighting inside. Kaden opened the back of his truck and Daisy jumped in happily. He leaned against the door for a moment, feeling the tension drain from his shoulders. He had moved to this colony world 6 months ago, chasing the promise of a new life. It was supposed to be a melting pot of species, a place where humans and aliens could coexist and share knowledge. Some days, it felt like he was the only one who had gotten the memo. As he climbed into the driver's seat, he caught a glimpse of Daisy in the rearview mirror, tongue lolling, eyes bright with excitement. "You're lucky you're cute," he muttered, scratching her head. He started the engine and pulled away from the clinic, leaving behind a trail of tire tracks and, probably, a few traumatized alien veterinarians. But he knew he'd have to come back eventually. Daisy would need her annual shots, after all. Maybe next time, he thought, they'd send someone wearing 2 suits, just to be safe. 3 days later, Kaden found himself back at the clinic, Daisy trotting happily beside him, completely unaware that she'd become something of a local legend. This time, the waiting room was busier. A cluster of small, scaly creatures that resembled walking cacti muttered together near the entrance. A gelatinous being, translucent and vaguely cube-shaped, emitted soft musical notes from somewhere deep inside its gooey core. Behind the reception desk, a different alien, stout and covered in short silvery fur, tapped away at a holopad without looking up. Kaden approached the desk, Daisy sitting obediently at his feet. The receptionist glanced at him with one eye while the other 3 remained fixed on the screen. "Name and species?" the receptionist asked briskly. "Kaden Murlow." "Human." "She's Daisy, a dog." There was a brief pause. The receptionist's fingers stuttered on the pad. One of its eyes swiveled to look at Daisy more directly. "You are listed," it said. "Flag for special handling. Please remain stationary." Before Kaden could ask what that meant, a new figure emerged from a side door. This one was taller than Dr. Zerl, with angular features and pale blue skin that shimmered slightly under the clinic lights. A wide sash of deep green fabric crossed its chest, embroidered with symbols Kaden didn't recognize. "I am Specialist HRR Vass," it said, its voice low and even. "I have been assigned to manage your companion's care today." Kaden stood up straighter. "She's just here for a vaccine update. Nothing major." Specialist HRR Vass inclined its head. "Understood. Follow me." As they walked down a corridor lined with softly glowing panels, Kaden noticed subtle differences from his last visit. Several doors were now adorned with warning signs in multiple languages. One bore a graphic of a snarling creature inside a red triangle. They entered a room that looked more like a conference chamber than a medical bay. There were no visible instruments, just a large cushion platform in the center and a semicircular console embedded into the far wall. "Place the canine on the platform," HRR Vass instructed. Kaden lifted Daisy up. She settled immediately, wagging her tail once before lying down contentedly. HRR Vass tapped a sequence on the console, and a soft field shimmered around the platform, like a soap bubble made of light. "Containment field," HRR Vass explained. "Not restrictive. Calming frequencies only." Kaden nodded cautiously. "All right. What's the plan?" HRR Vass adjusted something behind the console, and a series of slender mechanical arms descended from the ceiling, each tipped with different instruments. Daisy lifted her head, curious, but didn't move otherwise. First, a health scan, HRR Vass said. Then immunization. Standard Terran canine package, adjusted for cross-planetary pathogens. The arms moved with surprising gentleness, scanning Daisy from nose to tail. A soft hum filled the room. She exhibits strong skeletal density, HRR Vass noted. Notable cardiovascular efficiency. Curious. She's a runner, Kaden said. We hike a lot. HRR Vass gave a small, thoughtful nod. Physical resilience is prized among most species. Yet Terran mammals seem to possess it in casual abundance. The scan completed with a pleasant chime. HRR Vass pressed another sequence, and one of the arms retracted, replaced by a slim injector. This will be brief. Kaden stepped closer instinctively. Can I hold her? Unnecessary. The field will soothe discomfort. The injector hovered over Daisy's shoulder. There was a soft hiss, and Daisy twitched once, more out of surprise than pain. She shook herself and sneezed, but remained lying down, tail thumping lazily against the platform. Impressive compliance, HRR Vass observed. She's used to it, Kaden said. We had to do a bunch of vaccinations when we moved here. HRR Vass tilted its head. Most species resist medical procedures, even when conditioned. Kaden shrugged. Humans get poked with needles all the time. You just learn to live with it. HRR Vass looked genuinely intrigued. Many civilizations consider invasive procedures barbaric. Yeah, well, humans figured out pretty early that a few seconds of discomfort beats dying of something dumb, Kaden said. Progress, I guess. There was a pause. I would like to study this attitude further, HRR Vass said. If you consent. Kaden raised an eyebrow. You want to study me? Or Daisy? Both. Your species' tolerance for physical stress is anomalous, especially given your relatively fragile physiology compared to other apex species. Kaden laughed. Fragile? You should see my uncle. Fell off a roof, broke his leg clean through, and still finished retiling before going to the hospital. HRR Vass blinked slowly. This is not hyperbole? Not even close. The specialist tapped something into the console. I will submit a formal request to the Cooperative's Research Division. Before Kaden could respond, a loud crash echoed from somewhere down the hall, followed by a chorus of shrill whistles and a metallic clanging. HRR Vass stiffened. Remain here, it ordered, striding toward the door. Kaden watched him disappear into the corridor, then turned his attention back to Daisy. She was now dozing happily, completely unfazed. Minutes passed. The humming of the containment field grew softer, almost like a lullaby. Eventually, HRR Vass returned, a slight frown etched into its features. A Scarn juvenile escaped containment during an orthopedic realignment procedure. Minor injuries only. Kaden raised an eyebrow. Scarn, quadrupedal, dense armor plating, limited impulse control. Sounds charming. HRR Vass approached the console again, deactivating the field. Daisy yawned and stretched, hopping down from the platform with a graceless thud. Your companion is cleared for full activity, HRR Vass said. However, I recommend limiting exposure to aquatic environments for 72 hours. Kaden made a mental note. Got it. No swimming. As he clipped the leash back on, HRR Vass hesitated. I have one more query. Shoot. Humans willingly engage in activities that risk bone fractures, organ trauma, and neurological damage, HRR Vass said. Voluntarily. Yeah, Kaden said, grinning. It's called sports. And you derive pleasure from this? Depends if you win. HRR Vass stared at him for a long moment, then turned back to the console, muttering something under its breath that sounded suspiciously like a prayer. On their way out, they passed a holding area where two small reptilian creatures were attempting to wrestle a much larger, sluggish slug beast into a containment bubble. The slug beast oozed along the floor, leaving a glittering trail behind it. Daisy barked once at the spectacle, tail wagging furiously. The reptilians froze, eyes wide, before scrambling to dig themselves deeper into the slug's slime for cover. Kaden tugged Daisy's leash gently. Let's not start another interspecies incident today. Outside, the air was crisp and carried the faint scent of metallic rain from an earlier storm. Kaden let Daisy hop into the truck bed, where she immediately flopped down with a satisfied grunt. Before climbing into the cab, he glanced back at the clinic. Through the translucent walls, he could see HR Vass already deep in discussion with another staff member, gesturing animatedly toward a holo display showing human athletic competitions. Kaden shook his head, smiling to himself. If nothing else, he figured, humanity's knack for making chaos look like normal behavior would keep the galaxy guessing for a long, long time. 3 weeks later, Kaden found himself standing once again under the two bright lights of the Cooperative Veterinary Center, Daisy at his side, blissfully unaware of the chaos she'd left behind last time. The automatic door slid open with a soft sigh, revealing a redesigned lobby. Thick, transparent barriers now divided the waiting area into individual compartments, and a large sign above the reception desk flashed. Please secure all Terran candidates before entry. Kaden glanced down at Daisy, who gave him her usual wide-eyed, tongue-lolling grin. Don't look at me like that, he muttered. You're why they had to install riot gear. The receptionist this time was a wiry creature with a segmented exoskeleton that clicked faintly whenever it moved. It tapped at a console without lifting its gaze. Name and species? Kaden Murlow, human. Daisy, canine. The receptionist's antennae twitched. Proceed to Isolation Bay 3. Do not deviate. They followed a glowing line on the floor that pulsed a gentle green, leading them into a small, glass-walled room. It was furnished with a cushioned bench and a bowl of water labeled Terran Hydration Unit. Daisy immediately lapped at the water, sloshing half of it onto the floor. Kaden sank onto the bench, massaging his temples. After about 10 minutes, the door slid open and Specialist HR Vass entered, this time accompanied by a second figure, a thin, hunched alien wearing a metallic harness that bristled with instruments. This is Dr. Miv, HR Vass said. Behavioral analyst. Kaden raised an eyebrow. Behavioral analyst? She's not a criminal. Behavioral trends among Terran species warrant further study, Dr. Miv said, voice gravelly. Particularly the alarming patterns of voluntary risk engagement. Daisy trotted up to Dr. Miv, tail wagging so hard her whole backside wobbled. Dr. Miv flinched but did not retreat, instead activating a small device that projected a floating holographic menu. Subject displays unguarded approach behavior. High trust index. She thinks everyone's her best friend, Kaden said. You could be holding a chainsaw, and she'd still come over for pats. Dr. Miv scribbled something onto a floating data pad. Curious. This level of indiscriminate social engagement is statistically maladaptive. Kaden leaned back against the wall. Maybe, but it's kept us alive. Mostly. HR Vass stepped forward. Today's session will involve low-level stress simulations to observe adaptive responses. Kaden frowned. Stress simulations? What kind of stress? A series of escalating stimuli designed to measure resilience and recovery, HR Vass said. Non-invasive. No lasting harm. Kaden looked down at Daisy, who was now trying to fit her entire head into the water bowl. Fine. But if she panics, we're pulling the plug. Dr. Miv activated a panel on the wall, and the room's ambient lighting shifted subtly, taking on a deep, pulsating hue. A faint, low-frequency hum began vibrating through the floor. Daisy lifted her head, ears perking up. She sniffed the air, tail slowing slightly, but otherwise remained calm. Baseline stress response, minimal, Dr. Miv noted. Next, a soft mechanical whirring filled the air as a small, drone-like object descended from the ceiling, hovering a few feet above Daisy. It emitted a gentle, oscillating beep. Daisy stared at it for a moment, then leapt up, barking happily, trying to catch it with her paws. HR Vass stepped back quickly. Unexpected engagement with stimulus. Yeah, that's called playing, Kaden said, grinning. You're gonna need tougher tests than that. Dr. Miv adjusted a dial, and the drone emitted a sudden, high-pitched whine before darting erratically around the room. Daisy chased it immediately, slipping on the wet floor and tumbling in a spinning heap. She popped back up, tail wagging furiously, giving a short, delighted woof. Subject exhibits no fear. Only increased arousal levels, Dr. Miv muttered. Welcome to dogs, Kaden said. You scare him, they just get more excited. The drone zipped closer, flashing a bright strobe light. Daisy lunged, caught it mid-air, and chomped down with a satisfying crunch. Sparks flew, and the remains of the drone clattered to the floor. There was a stunned silence. Kaden whistled low. Well, that's one way to pass a stress test. HR Vass recovered first. Subject terminated simulation equipment. Noted. Dr. Miv clicked its mandibles thoughtfully. Adaptation through destruction. Primitive, but effective. Kaden shrugged. Whatever works. While Dr. Miv was still noting observations, HRR Vass retrieved a small medical scanner and approached Daisy cautiously. Now we assess physiological recovery, HRR Vass said. Daisy, tongue still lolling, allowed the scanner to pass over her without protest. The device beeped softly. Heart rate elevated but within safe parameters. No signs of trauma. Dr. Miv seemed almost disappointed. Minimal stress saturation. High resilience. Kaden leaned forward. You guys are used to species that shut down under pressure, huh? Many prioritize immediate withdrawal or submission, HRR Vass said. Terran persistence strategies are unconventional. You think this is weird? You should see how we train military working dogs, Kaden said. Condition them to jump out of helicopters, sniff out explosives, chase down armed suspects. They love it. It's a big game to them. Dr. Miv's beady eyes gleamed. You weaponize exuberance. Pretty much. The analyst tapped its pad again. Proposal. Further testing under variable gravity conditions. Nope, Kaden said immediately. She's getting her shots, and then we're going home. HRR Vass hesitated. Additional data could. Kaden held up a hand. You want to study humans and dogs? Fine, but not today. She's not a lab rat. Both aliens exchanged a glance. A rapid flutter of eye membranes. Kaden had learned meant reluctant agreement. Understood, HRR Vass said. Proceeding with final immunizations. Dr. Miv withdrew, muttering calculations under its breath, while HRR Vass prepared another injection. As HRR Vass approached, Daisy sat obediently, offering her shoulder like a professional. The injector pressed against her fur with a quiet hiss. Daisy flinched once, then immediately nosed Kaden's hand for a treat. Kaden chuckled, pulling a biscuit from his pocket. Good girl. HRR Vass stepped back, deactivating the injector. Procedure complete. No adverse reactions. As Kaden stood, clipping the leash back on, HRR Vass hesitated again. There is a philosophical inquiry arising from this session, HRR Vass said. Kaden sighed. Shoot. If Terran species thrive through resilience and adaptability, HRR Vass said, does this not inherently predispose your civilization toward chaotic expansion? Kaden thought about it for a moment. Maybe. But it's not just chaos. It's stubborn hope. We don't just survive. We make things better. Even when it doesn't make sense. Dr. Miv, who had drifted back into earshot, made a low, skeptical noise. Optimism in the face of adversity. Statistically illogical. Yeah, Kaden said. And yet, here we are. They exited Isolation Bay 3 without further incident. As Kaden signed the discharge forms, the receptionist watched them warily, one hand hovering over a nearby alert button. Outside, the twin suns were low in the sky, casting long shadows across the parking base. Kaden opened the truck door, letting Daisy hop in with a satisfied grunt. For a moment, he lingered, watching the clinic's glowing windows as night began to fall. Somewhere inside, he knew, their files were being updated with new classifications, new warnings, new bewildered notes about Terran unpredictability. He chuckled softly, climbing into the cab. Come on, girl, he said, ruffling Daisy's ears. Let's find some chaos of our own. As the truck pulled away, the clinic faded into the distance, a small, baffled outpost in a galaxy still learning what it meant to share a universe with humans.